Hello. I will again want to welcome you to another edition of our leadership series, Leading Edge. And I do hope this continues to be useful to you in your leadership journey. I've decided today to do something very unique as a build up to our upcoming Difference Makers Leadership Conference, which centers around the theme of transformation. I'd like to just share a few thoughts in that line. Right. Let me start with something that happened a couple of years ago that meant a lot to me because it taught me quite a bit. And so this was a couple of years ago. My children were still quite young then. I think my first son was the age of 6 and my daughter was 4. We had gone to spend a weekend in the house of a family friend. While we were there, my son got into a room and was teaching my daughter how to count the numerals in Igbo language. All right. So he was guiding her through the counting. And so they went on. 1, otu, 2, abo, 3, ato, 4, ano, 5, ise, 6, isi, 7, asa, 8, asato, 9, itolu, 10, iri. Yeah. So that was the session for that day. They were counting it. And then while they were on it, they will count to 10 and then they will start from 1 again and count to 10. Apparently, my son had been taught in school only to count up to 10. So he will always stop at 10. And then an older girl who belonged to the family walked into the room, heard them, going through this counting and stopping at 10. And then he turns and says to my son, "Can I teach you how to count 11 in Igbo?" My son's reaction was as immediate as it was vehement. He said to the older girl, "There is no 11 in Igbo." Now I was in the room. When I heard that, it struck me. The level of certainty with which he said it, "There is no 11 in Igbo." The girl said, "No, there is 11 in Igbo." He said, "No, there is no 11 in Igbo. In fact, he confirmed it by saying, my teacher says there is no 11 in Igbo." Apparently, he had only been taught up to 11, up to 10. Now, what the older girl did was to turn to my daughter, who was younger, and say to my daughter, "Can I teach you 11 in Igbo?" And my daughter said, "Okay." And then they started counting. 11, Irino to 12, Irinabo. And as a sign of vengeance against what was going on, my son raised his voice and he was screaming, 1, 2, 2, abo, 3, ato, 4, ano. And then he will get to 10 and then he will start all over again. Now, this clearly brings out something very interesting. And I learned a lot of lessons from there. One lesson I learned was that when you stop learning, you will stop growing. In fact, you will tell into the realm of the living dead, because then you are gone. And this shows us immediately the difference between what I call a fixed mindset and a growth mindset. All right? My daughter had a growth mindset, and so she could continue learning 11, 12, 13, and on in Igbo. Obviously, my son had a fixed mindset, so he couldn't absorb any new learning, and he couldn't change, he couldn't transform. Right. Joe Jackman just released a book recently that he calls the Reinventionist Mindset, where he makes a very powerful submission. And that is that there is a current serial killer on the prowl, killing companies, and I must also add, killing individuals. This serial killer is called the status quo. All right? Taking things as normal, just flowing in the normal course of events and things. Right. The truth is that, especially in this period of supercharged changes, we require leaders that are change agile. Okay? Any slow moving or change resistant organization or individual will die. There is a need, therefore, to embrace reinvention. Okay? There's a need to embrace reinvention. So let's start with this. You cannot change until you have a mindset for transformation. Right? So let me establish first of all that there is a mindset for transformation. Okay, so for transformation to happen, a growth mindset must be integrated into the change initiatives and organizational efforts for transformation. So today I'll be speaking on the four keys for developing a transformational mindset. Right. Let me establish, first of all, that the natural state of people is to be comfortable with the way things are. Okay. What we are used to. Okay. This is essentially because change is, number one, unsettling. Take note of that. It's unsettling. It disrupts things the way we know them. Okay. Number two, change is frightening. We fear it may leave us in a worse state. It comes with thoughts of so many what ifs and what ifs and what ifs, right? The third thing is that change is tough. It may require a disruption also to the comfortable way we are running. It may require adjustments that will demand more from us in terms of our time, new learnings, etc., etc. Okay. So know that all of these things are just perceptions. They are thought vibes. They are thoughts. When allowed to fester, these thoughts lead to resistant actions. And that's why you see people fighting against change. Therefore, mindset becomes central in the success or failure of any transformation program, whether at the personal level or at the institutional level. Okay? As psychologists have said, your life will generally move in the direction of your dominant thought patterns. Right? Okay. So let's look at the four, transformation mindsets, the keys to transformation mindset. Okay. So I will build it around thinking. So, number one, I call it think, flexibility and accommodation. Number two, unthink, feed your desire, not your fears. Number three, rethink, embrace the unfamiliar, embrace uncertainty. And number four, forethink, attempt the opposite and the impossible. All right? So let's go. So number one, think. And this is my way of challenging us to get flexible in our thinking. Don't be a closed system. All right? So the first challenge for us will be to think about what we think about. Create flexibility. All right? You need to train your mind to be so flexible, to know that there are realities other than what you are used to. That is the starting point. Remember my son and the Igbo numerals. All right? A growth mindset makes allowance for 11 in the Igbo language. All right? Indeed, there are unquantifiable ranges and depths of reality out there. Reality does not end with 1 to 10. It's infinite. You need to know that. Okay? So first of all, you need to think. You need to think. You need to get flexible. If you must transform, you need to get flexible in your thinking. Okay? So number two, unthink. And I've said in that regard, feed your desires. Don't feed your fears. There are counter-dominant limiting mindsets that you will need to challenge. Now, listen to this. Statistics shows us that there are about 65,000 thoughts that go through our minds on a daily basis. And listen, that's huge. For those who are not self-aware, it is typical to develop a lot of limiting mindsets because these thoughts are flashing through here and there. And these mindsets are formed through past experiences, significant emotional milestones in your life. Maybe, an armed robber attacked you one time, and then anytime you look at the door through which the armed robber came, you are frightened, right? You don't trust any doors anymore. All right? Now, often it's our fear that we verbalize. So we say things, my job is tough. You don't know Lagos. Lagos is hard. And all of those things. They are coming from our past experiences and certain emotional milestones that we have been through. If you are not careful, you begin to feed those kinds of thoughts. These are limiting mindsets of self-doubt, beliefs, and other negative thoughts that get in the way of your true fulfillment. What am I saying? don't feed them. If you want to have a transformational mindset, begin to unthink them, challenge them, and stop feeding them. What do you do instead? Feed your desires, feed your dreams, feed the outcomes that you rather desire, the outcomes that you want out of your life. Let them be the ones that you feed. I normally say to people around me, when they begin to say things that are negative about themselves, I say to them, say what you want, not what you fear. Life will be easier that way. Don't you think so? Right? Just say what you want. Don't say what you fear. So we've talked about think. We've talked about unthink. Then number 3, let's talk about rethink. Rethink challenges us to embrace the unfamiliar, embrace uncertainty. Now, so you need to challenge even your best ideas. That's what this means. Challenge even the best ideas that you have, because that is what creates continuous improvement. Because transformation is about a journey of improvement, moving from here to there. Okay, I read some time ago that there are 2 key drivers for scientific discovery. These are, number 1, intellectual humility, being able to know that reality is not fixed, it is transformational. That's 1. Number 2 is having a spirit of adventure, to seek the thrill of the unfamiliar. Now, if you are not comfortable with the unfamiliar, you will not grow. You will not grow. All right? So it takes only those who are comfortable with adventure, comfortable with the unfamiliar, comfortable with uncertainty to drive real growth. Robert Kierkegaard and Leo Spatler wrote a seminal book called If It Ain't Broke, Break It. Wow. Okay? You know, a fixed mindset would say something like, if it ain't broke, why bother? All right? But a mindset that creates exponential growth will say, if it is not broken, break it. All right? Let me tell you this story. I read John Maxwell's book, I think it was last year, No Limits. No Limits. Now, it tells a story about a school teacher who narrated what happened to 3 young boys, right? School boys. So the route to their school had a long, wide, high wall, right? So every day as they are going to school, they pass through this very long stretch with a very high wall. The boys always wondered what was on the other side of the wall. So one day, their curiosity reached its peak. They could no longer bear it. So one of them said, let's find out what is on the other side. You know what he did? He removed his cap and he threw it over the wall. Now he had a motivation to climb the wall to see what was on the other side. So he began to climb. As he began to climb, the first boy stood wondering at the climb, and then soon enough, he also joined, and they all threw their caps over the wall, and then they joined in the climb. Now, what this shows us is that sometimes you will need to throw your cap over the wall in order to commit to the growth of your life and to discoveries, because you may never find new landscapes until you make that deliberate attempt to throw your cap over the wall. So I'll challenge you today, begin to rethink the things around you, reality around you. There are very many more things that you can uncover. All right? That is how to create a mind of transformation. It's a mind of adventure. All right. So we've covered think, and then we've spoken about unthink, and I've just talked about rethink. The final thing I'll talk to you about will be to forethink or to front think. This is to attempt the opposite and the impossible. It is to be a future thinker. It is to create what has never been. Let me tell you this. Most of life, people will tell you what's never been done or what you cannot do. I've heard that severally in my life. As a student, I went into a program, and people who had done that program told me, nobody ever made so and so great in it. Now, that is normal. It is whether you will then accept that you are part of the nobody. That is the key question. Are you part of the nobody? All right. So a transformational mindset cuts something different. It challenges the normal. It challenges the impossible. It tries something that has not been tried before. Somebody wrote a powerful book, and I love that book. It is called Whatever You Think the Opposite. Vertical thinking. Whatever you think the opposite. So people say it is like this. Can you think something completely different? All right. This is breakthrough thinking. It is knowing that the same alphabet that can be 6 can also be 9, depending on the angle of your view, head or tail. So challenge your thinking. Okay. Like Joe Jackman says, don't merely do things to win, do things also just to learn. All right. Give yourself the freedom to experiment, the freedom to fail, and the freedom to learn. So failing doesn't become a problem at that point because you're experimenting. All those who create great leadership, all those who create exponential results, there are people that attempt what others thought were impossible. And I'll challenge you to get into this kind of mindset. All right. So we have gone through these 4 things I consider critical in developing a transformational mindset. Remember, number 1 is think. Think about what you think about. Create flexibility in the way you think. Reality is not fixed. Number 2, unthink. There are counter dominant limiting mindsets that you need to challenge, and you need to bring them down and establish some fresh ones. So unthink. Number 3, rethink. Challenge even your best ideas. This creates continuous improvement. And finally, 4 think or front think. Be a future thinker. Create what's never been. It is that mindset that delivers transformation. It is that mindset that leaders require at this time. It is to be agile in your thought. Be change agile as a leader in this time. Okay, so we come to the end of this session today. I will request you again to subscribe to our YouTube channel if you have not already done so. This will enable you keep receiving these materials on a weekly basis. And do follow us on our various social media handles. This has been Leading Edge. I'd like to thank you for joining us.